Okay, this is going to be a quick little demo to get you started on the final project for alpha-sort. Basically going to take in some data from an array, and you can assume that all the data in the array contains lowercase words, there's no duplications and no empty strings. Okay, but some of the words do start out the same, like scar and scary. Okay, so basically we have to go through and compare this word to that word, and we're going to use the selection sort to do this. So there's a video on lecture 9 on sorting, and you basically, this is going to be our main function, alpha selection sort. Okay, I've added comments to help you along the way. I've got the basic structure here, but you're going to have to fill in the gaps. So basically, alpha selection sort takes in an array of data. We're going to pass it the data array. Down here, this is where we call alpha selection sort, and we pass in the data. We log it beforehand so we can see how it was sorted before, and then we log it again after, and we see that it should be in the correct order. Okay, so we pass in the data array. Then, just like in the lecture on sorting, we iterate through the loop. We start I equals 0 and iterate to the length of the array, while I is less than arr.length. Okay, and we increment I each time. Then we have a second loop that's going to be the word that we compare it to. So I starts at 0 here, J always starts at I plus 1. So I plus 1 is 1, so J is going to start here and go to the end of the array. Okay, so basically what we do in here is we need to check to see if this word and this word are in the correct order. If they are in the correct order, we don't do anything, that's fine. If they're not in the correct order, then we have to swap them. Okay, so I've made two functions for this. So the body of this function is going to be really simple. It's going to say basically if they're out of order, then swap. Something like this. Swap. And the swap is going to take the data array as an argument and two indices, two index values, so whatever I and J are, and it's going to swap those two elements. Okay, so that's basically the body. All you have to do is figure out how to get, are they out of order? Okay, so the swap function, you basically taken the array and you have two indices. You have to create a temporary value. So if I go over here to node, I'll create a list A, B, and C. Okay, and I want to swap the item at index 0 with the item at index 2. So that should be A and C. If I want to swap those items, I have to make a temporary variable and say, okay, store in that the item at in the list at index 0. Okay, so temp has A in it now. Now, since I've already saved A, I can go ahead and write it over in the array. So my list, I'm going to say at item 0, I want that to be, since I'm swapping the two values, I want that to be the item at index 2 now. Okay, so let's look at list and see what we have. Okay, that's good. We've copied over C to here. Now I use my temp variable and I assign the item at index 2 to what's stored in the temp variable. List item 2 equals temp. Okay, and let's look at list now. A and C have switched. So that's essentially all you're going to do for this swap function. It should just be like 3 lines of code. Alright, so now we need to determine when to swap. So we have to find out if it's the correct order. So is correct order takes in word 1 and word 2. Okay, so this should be the item at index I and the item at index j. Okay, so we're going to make a new variable. This variable I only applies to this function. It's a different I than in these loops. Okay, so while true is going to be an infinite loop. And the reason we can do this is because when you return from the function is correct order, the loop breaks, it stops. Okay, and we have a guaranteed way. One of these is eventually going to be return a value, true or false. Okay, so the first case, these are 4 different cases we have to think about that we know for sure one word comes before the other. Okay, the case where we continue through the loop is, consider word 1 is scar and word 2 is scary. Okay, this I value represents the character in the 2 words that we're looking at, the position. So we're going to compare the 0 index item in each word. And if they're the same, that's when the loop continues through and we have to move on to the next index, index 1, and compare those 2. If those are the same, we go through the loop again. Okay, all the way here. Now finally we get to the end and we have something. We know, even though they were exactly the same up to that point, this word is shorter, so we know this word comes first. Alright, so that's the very first if. If the character at position I in word 1 doesn't exist, which it doesn't here, there's no 5th character here, then this means that word 1 is shorter, so that means it will come first. So this function is named isCorrectOrder. So it's going to return true if this is the correct order, word 1 and then word 2. If word 2 comes first, then this is going to return false because this is not the correct order. Alright, so if the character at index I of word 1 does not exist, so you basically check to see if it equals undefined, triple equals, then we return true, because that means it's a shorter word. The shorter words comes first, which means word 1 is in the correct order. Alright, here we check to see if the character at index I of word 2 exists. If it does not exist, then that means word 2 is shorter, which means it should come first, which means it's not the correct order. So we return false. Okay. Now this one, this is where we compare the characters. Consider the words scar and star. Okay, at index 1, we're going to compare T and the letter C and the letter T. JavaScript has a built-in way of doing this, and it's really nice. The computer actually stores all characters as numbers. There's something called an ASCII value, ASCII. Let me pull that up. So every value of a character on a keyboard has a character that it prints out, but it also has a numeric value, and that's what numeric value is stored when it's stored in memory. Okay, because everything in computers is zeros and ones. It stores the number value of the character. So notice the ASCII value for the capital letter A is 65. The ASCII value for the lowercase letter a is 97. Okay, we're going to simplify this and just make sure everything's lowercase, so you don't have to worry about that. But you see that A is less than B. So A value is 97, B is 98. So JavaScript is nice and automatically converts these things for us. So I can say A is less than B, and it says true. If I say is B less than A, that's false. So that's how you can compare two characters. So I'm going to compare here and see if the character at index I of word 1 is less than the character at index I of word 2. And if it is, then we return true. Here I'm just going to convert the character. I'm going to do the same thing, but switch the operands and see if the character at index I of word 2 is less than the character at index I of word 1, right? And then the last thing to do is, if none of these have been true, then we need to increment our I variable and move on to the next letter. Okay, so here you have to increment I. Basically, anywhere you see one of these to-dos, you need to add code. I've got to-do here, these to-dos. Okay, so this is a pretty good structure to get you going, and I've added some help telling you what exactly you need to do to complete it. Alright, but you have to write the code. Alright, so that should get you started on this one.